Hi guys, it's Puddles here. We have another encounter building episode. This is part 27 and we're talking about pacing again. Last video we talked about how we can improve pacing, make shorter combats, not drag it out as long by just having less things going on. In this video we're going to talk about knowing what our encounter is, knowing what the creatures are, what the abilities they have, how they're going to interact with each other, what strategies that they're going to put into the combat. Thinking about this stuff before we actually run the combat so that when we're in the combat, we do it much quicker. So let's just jump right in, shall we? Before we continue, I'll just preface it with a thing that I commented on in the other video is you get many actions during combat. So even though it might seem like it is interesting to you, your players might be bored out of their minds because they're waiting for their turns. So there are some things that we can do as DMs to speed up our side of the combat to ensure that you get to the player's turn quicker. And one of those is knowing what your encounter is. So you have more actions, so do them quickly. Be efficient. Don't sit around fumbling thinking what your characters are going to do. You should know what the abilities of the creatures are before you put them in your encounter. And I think that's pretty easy to do. Like, you're building this encounter, just read what they can do and think about how you would use that in the combat. I mean, you don't have to, but you can include memorizing things like their movement speed, their range, their AC, so that you can just get it off the top of your head. That's not necessary. It will speed up your combat, but if you need to look at the monster menu to see what their AC is when a player attacks them, that's fine. That won't slow down combat too much. But if you're sitting there thinking and stroking your chin, trying to figure out what action they're going to take or what spell they're going to cast, then you're kind of slowing down the combat. And you as the DM need to set the flow. You need to make it fast and interesting and exciting. So knowing what their abilities are is very important. So is what strategy is. Are they going to run away if they get charged? Are they going to send some sneaky guys around the back? Plan these things out before you run your encounter. You should know the layout and terrain of the encounter, so your creatures know where they're going to go, or know where you're going to put your creatures, how they're going to find cover or abuse terrain to punish the players. And you could just get a map and plop it down and then put your creatures on one side and the players on the other. But you're going to waste time thinking about what the creatures are doing. So it is good to think about these things before you run your encounter. If you have things like lair actions or legendary actions that your creatures have, know what they are, know when they happen, and trigger it quickly. Make it known or once it happens to the players, and just do that. It's a very simple thing to know the things that your encounter has. And I'll go into lair actions and legendary actions in later videos for people who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about. But the last note here is practice your encounters. If you're not sure about how an encounter is going to go, or how to use the spells, or how you want things to work out, you can just quickly run through an encounter. You don't have to roll dice or anything like that. You could just be like, well, the players are here, they might do this, this is what this guy is, these are the options that I have, maybe I'll do this. And it'll just get your brain thinking quicker for when you actually have the combat. You know your options and you can decide what the best one is in the moment. So I like doing that. You don't have to do it with every encounter though, just the ones that matter to you, the ones that are important, and ones that are complex enough for you to kind of need to do that. I mean, if you're fighting a couple of goblins, you don't really need to act that out to see how it's going to go, because there's only a certain amount of options that you have. Basically, the more options you have, the more likely or the more usefulness you'll get out of practicing said encounter. Now, to demonstrate how not knowing the abilities of the creatures might slow you down, I have, if I just zoom out here, I have a bunch of creatures here. I've never used any of these creatures in any of my games. We've got a Dark Mantle, a Dryad, a Succubus, a Chain Devil, a Grimlock, a Steam Mephit, a Kautal, I don't know how to say that, a Spirit Naga, and a Storm Giant. Now, I don't know what any of these creatures' abilities are. If I was to a fight without knowing what the abilities are, I'm going to slow down the combat. So, like, for example, let's go to the Dark Mantle here. Let's see how long it takes me to figure out what it does. So, it has blind sight, so it can see in the dark, which is pretty cool. It uses echolocation. While it remains motionless, it is indistinguishable from a cave formation of a stalactite or a stalagmite. Cool. So, I might put this guy into a combat without realizing that he's supposed to be stealthed or supposed to, like, sneak up on your players. If I don't read what he does. He has a darkness aura. So spread out the corners as long as his Dark Mantle is remain concentrated. So he can cast darkness from where he is as a 15-foot radius. That's pretty cool. But, like, you see how long it is taking me right now to figure out what this simple creature can do. What about other, like, this is a pretty low level creature. I don't even know what it is. It's like a CR half. Let's go for a big guy. What's the Storm Giant? So he's the CR 13. He's huge. He's amphibious, apparently. He has spellcasting. If I was just going to throw him in, like, I've run other giants, like a hill giant doesn't have any spells. So if I didn't know anything about this Storm Giant, I could throw it into my encounter and then in the middle of combat be like, oh wow, he's got spells. Maybe I should use some, and spend time thinking about the more options that I have. So what can a Storm Giant do? He can innately cast Detect Magic, Featherfall, Levitate, Light, Control Weather, and Water Breathing. Okay. Whoa, he's got a Lightning Strike. That's pretty cool. He can hurl a Lightning Bolt at 500 feet doing 12d8 damage. Interesting, but he's also got a rock. So I've had other giants in my games where they throw rocks. I could have assumed that he only threw rocks, and then when I'm going to do a ranged attack, I see that he has lightning as well. And I decide in the moment to do the lightning instead of the rock. Whereas if I had pre-thought out the combat and read what the abilities that this creature has, I would know immediately that I would want to do the lightning. And it might not seem like it's taking up that much time in the combat, but if I'm doing that constantly, it actually does add up a lot. It's better to know exactly the abilities they have, know exactly what you want them to do with their action, and it's better for everything. It's better for everyone in the combat. It goes faster, it's much nicer, and you don't have to, on the fly, figure out how these creatures work. I mean, I was going to go through all of them, but I think that's kind of not needed at all. I think with the two that I put there, I have made a good enough example. But yeah, just know what the creatures can do so that you know what to do in combat, so it's not being dragged out. That's pretty much the synopsis of this video. I don't know if that's the right word I need to use, but that's the point of this video. I hope this has been interesting. I hope it's been helpful, and thank you for watching.